Hello, Will here with Recuperate at recuperate.com, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make a dinner consisting of a nice steak with mushroom cream sauce, and on the side I've got some cabbage and potatoes going. So all I did was I sliced up the cabbage right off the head, just sliced it off and then cut it in each slice in half and pulled the pieces apart, and then I cut a potato in half and put it in there with some water and a good amount of apple cider vinegar, as well as some about a tablespoon of chicken bouillon. And I'll show you, this is the bottle of chicken bouillon. You may have seen this in the store. You may even use it, and you may have thought it was only for chicken soup or whatever, but it's really a good seasoning. You use it like a seasoning or an herb or spice or something, and it's really good. So I'm gonna wait until this is done. It hasn't even come to a boil yet, but I got it on a high heat, and once it's come to a boil, I'm gonna turn it down to maybe a medium heat and simmer it for about 20 minutes, and then I'm going to take it off because I don't want it to be too hot when I cook the steak. The steak is only going to take about maybe 8 minutes to cook, and then maybe about 5 minutes to make the sauce. So I'll be back. Okay, so that's what our cabbage looks like after cooking it for about 20 minutes. As you can see, the cooking process has caused the cabbage to release some liquid, so there's more liquid in there than there was before. The cabbage is cooked down and the potatoes are cooked. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plate this and let it cool off, and then we'll do our steak. Cabbage on our plate with our potato. I'm using something called a slotted spoon. It's called a slotted spoon because it has slots in it. These are holes. Some of them may be straight slots, but it allows me to scoop up the food and allows the liquid to drain off. So I got most of the cabbage out of there. That should be fine. It's okay to waste some food. It just shows God that you appreciate His abundance. So, that's what our cabbage and potatoes looks like. And here's our pan for the steak. And what I'm going to do is use some cooking spray to spray the bottom of it. It's really not so that it doesn't stick, it's just so that it has some kind of medium to saute the steak with. You may have heard of grilling steaks, and that's very fine, but you might not have access to a grill. You might live in an apartment with maybe charcoal grills outside that you might not have charcoal, or you just might not have access to a grill. And sauteing a steak is just as good as grilling it. It just depends on what you want to do. So I turned it to as high as heat as it will stand. On an electric stove, you don't want to turn it to the highest heat because it'll ruin the pan. It'll warp the pan and burn the pan. So we're gonna turn this on to, I turned it on to 9, and we're gonna let that heat up. Over here we have the components of our sauce. Actually, I gotta get something out of the fridge. I have one more thing. So we got our steak, which I've let sit out and warm up to room temperature. You don't really want to put a cold steak in your pan. And I've got some mushrooms here. I've got some cream. This is half and half. And I have this steak sauce. So what we're going to do is we're going to saute the steak for about 3 minutes on each side, I suppose, because the steak is kind of thin. But before we do that, let's season the steak, I have some, this is a salt substitute because I want to reduce the amount of sodium that I take in, but I also want to increase the amount of potassium I take in. Now, getting too much of this stuff is actually worse than getting too much salt. It's worse for you. So you really have to use this stuff in moderation. I would say no more than 1.5 teaspoons a day. But even that's kind of pushing it. And no more than 2 teaspoons of salt a day, no more than maybe 2,300 milligrams of sodium a day. If you want to go, you need more salt, then you just use some of this. But don't use this to replace all your salt. Just use it in moderation. So I'm going to put some salt on there, and I'm going to get some pepper, and that's really all you need. Some people like to maybe put some garlic on it or something like that, but I really like the flavor of beef, and I don't want too much seasoning on there to get in the way of that flavor. So most of the time steaks, all they need is salt and pepper. If you're doing a pork chop, salt and pepper works just fine for that as well. Just make sure you cook the pork completely, because if you don't, you could get a foodborne illness called trichinosis. So here's our pan heated up. You can see the oil is beaded, and that means it's hot. So we're going to put the steak on, and I'm just going to set my timer to 3 minutes. And I'm just not going to touch that for 3 minutes. In fact, what I might do is add in the mushrooms. So put the mushrooms on the side, cook those at the same time, because what's going to happen is a fond is going to form on the bottom. It's like caramelized meat juices that come out, and if I cook the mushrooms after the steak, I'm afraid the fond might actually burn beyond good flavor. So I'm going to cook the mushrooms at the same time. All I got to do is put them on the side. The heat's fairly high, so this should cook very well. So in about 3 minutes I'll be back to turn the steak and to also turn each one of these little mushroom slices. I bought these mushrooms already sliced. They're the same price as the unsliced mushrooms, and they're clean, so I didn't have to worry about that. And I'm just going to put them in the pan and let them brown on each side, and I'll be back in about 3 minutes. As minimalists tend to do from time to time, minimalists such as myself. So I'm going to turn that steak. I'm going to set the timer once again for 3 minutes. And we're just going to turn our mushrooms. See how nice and brown they are on that one side, but we want them to be brown on both sides, on each one of them. If you find it kind of tedious to turn each one of these, turn them over, and just don't use as many slices, but use as much as you want. And this will go, and as you can see, I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but some stuff's forming at the bottom. And our mushrooms are browning, and our steak is browning. And the only thing that's left is to add the cream, a little bit more salt, and pepper to the sauce, and some of that steak sauce to the sauce. And you'll see how it turns out in about 2 minutes. So I'll be back in 2 minutes. Okay, so we're back. And here's our steak and mushrooms. Here's our cabbage and potatoes. I put some butter on that. We're going to take our steak off. And we're going to shake the pan and just mushrooms on there. Mushrooms on top. Now our pan is smoking. Let's turn down our heat. I turned it down to about 4. Let's take it off. We don't want this to burn, especially when we pour the cream on. If you're deglazing with something else, like maybe some wine or some stock, it's okay if the heat's really high, but the cream can really take a nosedive if it's too hot. So we'll put this back on there, and we'll open up our cream. And we're only going to put maybe about 1/3 of a cup. I'm just going to eyeball it. As you can see, it bubbles, it thickens up. We're going to season it with some of that salt substitute, some pepper, and some of this steak sauce. I'm going to put in about, maybe a tablespoon or so of the steak sauce. Take our spatula. As you can see, it's gotten very thick and saucy. Let's take it off the heat. See how that was really hot, and it really reduced the cream. Reducing means you're pulling the water out of it. So we'll turn the heat off. Oops. And what I'm going to do is pour this over. I only have one hand. Let's see here. And end up with very much sauce. I'll try to do it with one hand. Scrape the bottom. I know this is kind of a sloppy video, but one of these days I'll get a tripod. I'm just starting out, and I really want to do this vlog. But you can use more cream if you want more sauce. I'm just trying to watch my weight and not have too much going on. But there's the cream sauce and the mushrooms, and you don't want too much interfering with the steak, but if you really like a lot of sauce, you could put like a cup of cream. But a cup of half and half is quite a bit of calories if you're trying to watch your weight. So I put maybe a couple of teaspoons of butter on the potatoes and cabbage. So this is our steak with cream sauce and mushrooms, and then I have it with cabbage and potatoes. So I hope you try it out. Look for the recipe on the blog and then more further instructions. And it's at recuperate.com and under the food and nutrition category. And thanks for watching. God bless you.